I swear the Jones boys were simply born bad. They were the terrors of the neighborhood. They were notorious from the time they were toddlers for getting into mischief and trouble. I'm sure that every boy along the street got the same lecture I got, and that was stay away from the Jones boys. They're bad news. It wasn't really hard. They were younger enough than I was, and even though I could see their house from mine, our circles really never did cross. And so staying away from the Jones boys was fairly easy until I hit junior high. And it was then that I took over my cousin Bobby's paper route, and the Jones boys became a living nightmare for me. Every night, they would lie in wait. Somewhere along the 4.5 miles of my paper route, I could guarantee you they would show up. I didn't know where, I didn't know when, I didn't know how, I didn't know what was going to happen, but somewhere they would be there. Oh, they did take some nights off. I swear they were watching just to see me sweat the entire 4.5 miles. Some nights they would be content with standing across the street and just verbally taunting me. Other nights they would tip my bicycle over when I went to a house to deliver the paper. Some nights they would dump the papers out. Some nights they would take them and scatter them across yards, watch me pick them up. Some nights they'd steal the whole bag and run off down the street, making me chase them, dropping the bag finally and laughing all the way home. Some nights they would physically abuse me. It was bad enough that I got bullied all day long in school. Now I was being bullied when I came home. I went to my mother and dad to see if they would help. Dad's advice was just ignore them. They'll go away when they find out they aren't going to get a rise out of you. Yeah, right, Dad. You're 6'1", 210, and even though you're the most soft-spoken person in town, nobody knows. Nobody dares mess with you. Mom's advice was a little more proactive. She said, go out back, cut yourself a good-sized stick. Cut it down so it fits in your paper bag. When they come off, after you just pull the stick out and wave it at them, they'll run like crazy because they don't want to get hurt. Sounded like good advice. So I got myself a good hickory club and put it in my bag, and I was ready for the next day. And sure enough, they came after me, and I reached in my bag, I grabbed my stick and waved it at them, and just like Mom said, they took my stick away and beat the living daylights out of me. It was a valuable lesson. So much for speaking softly and carrying a big stick. It doesn't work. Whenever we lower ourselves to those who abuse us, to adopt their tactics, we come out the losers. Because we have lowered our standards to theirs and our actions to theirs. And I should have known that, because Jesus talks a lot about how to deal with your enemies and those that persecute you. I heard it all the time in church. Didn't like it, but I heard it. Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. Sure, Jesus. You didn't know the Jones boys. And also, this revenge, this vengeance, this retribution, this judgment, they're not yours to deal with. They're God's purview. So leave the judging to God, and God will take care of it. I didn't like any of it. It sounded like so many platitudes. Why should I love my enemies and pray for those that persecute me? Well, I learned a little while later. I was delivering papers down in the trailer court, and I noticed the row over from where I was delivering, there was a car moving very slowly, obviously looking for something or someone. I assumed it must be me. Yeah, paranoia was running pretty high in those days. I ducked behind a trailer to see if I could see who it was. And sure enough, it was the oldest of the Jones boys. I weaved my way through the trailers, delivering the papers, never coming out in the open. I no longer saw the car moving up and down the rows, so I assumed I was safe. But when I reached the end of the row I was delivering, there it was. And he was sitting on the hood of the car. I figured I was dead meat. He said, "Harold, I've been looking all over for you." He said, "I just drove by the house. The ambulance was there. I think they're taking your dad to the hospital. Tell you what, get in and I'll take you home. And if you leave your papers in the book, I can finish the rest of your delivery." I just stood there in shock. Was this really him? It took me a while before I could stammer out, "It's okay. He's just going for a blood transfusion. We can't get him in the car anymore, so they have to call the ambulance. I appreciate your offer, but I can finish it. He should be back by the time I get home." You never know who God will use to bless your life. And so we pray for those who persecute us. We love those whom we call enemies. It's wise advice in these days when divisiveness and calls for vengeance and violence are so prevalent in our world, to remember our calling and the blessings that come with it. To dare to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you may just change your life. For goodness is stronger than evil, love is stronger than hate, light is stronger than darkness, life is stronger than death. Victory is ours, through God who loves us. Victory is ours, through God who loves us.